Hello friends, this is Dr. Sunita Magre, Professor, Department of Education, University of Mumbai. Today we are dealing with the topic Feminist Research. Lecture outline, Introduction about Feminist Research, Concept of Feminist Research, History of Feminist Research, what is Feminism, Kinds of Feminism, Liberal Feminism, Radical Feminism, Marxist Feminism, Socialist Feminism. Objectives. When you are going through this session, you will be able to understand the concept of feminist research, understand the history of feminist research, and understand various types of feminism. Learning outcomes. At the end of the session, you will be able to explain the concept of feminist research, explain the views on liberal, radical, Marxist, and socialist feminism. Now, what is the concept of feminist research? When you want to do the research, means you have a problem or you have a question and you want to solve that problem or you want to answer that question in a very proper and systematic way. Means we can say that the research begins with a problem or a question. And when deciding the problem and what is the solutions of that problems, then we can use the method. Which method will be used? What is the solution of the answer? For that, we can gather, organize, and analyze the data and publish our report. So this is about the research. And then what is the feminist research? Suppose anybody can ask, what do you think about the feminist research? Or what is feminist research? Or what is meant by feminist research? The very typical answer, the research done by the women, the research is done, researches for the women, and the research is about the women. So this is the very typical answer about the feminist research. But when you study the feminist research, one of the feminist researchers, that is the Robbins, he argued that the feminist researchers produced feminist research. And there is no single definition of feminist research. But many authors, those who are doing or done the feminist research, they find out some points or the certain key elements for defining the features of feminist research. And whatever the authors given the key elements or the points to defining the structure of the feminist research or the various features of the feminist research, and these features will be helpful to distinguish feminist research from either traditional social sciences research, research that studies women, or research that attends to gender but without an agenda for a change. So what is meant by feminist research, or what is the detailed concept about the feminist research? Feminism is a political movement concerned with the inequalities between men and women and works to achieve liberation for women from these inequalities. Feminist research involves challenging the structures and ideologies that oppress women. Feminist researchers start with the political commitment to produce useful knowledge that will make a difference to women's lives through social and individual change, according to the literature. Feminist research challenges silence and assumption in the mainstream of the research. Then history of feminist research. Feminist research started to think critically about mainstream social research in the 1960s and 1970s. Feminist research originated within feminism as feminist academics recognized that their lived experiences were not represented within researches. For example, the sociology of work and industry and the sociology of deviance focused on the male behavior, and the feminist research draw attention to women's experiences. For example, Angel Oakley, 1974, looked at housework from women's perspectives and challenged male assumptions about the work. So, there are what is feminism? Now, feminism is a social, previously we already discussed it, the social as well as political movement concerned with women's rights, aiming to point out and condemn their suffrage. Feminist or feminist research or feminism believes that all societies' power are based on the patriarchy. And in this patriarchal world, the women have no right or the powers. Kinds of feminism. There are the 4 kinds of feminist thoughts, or the 4 kinds of the theory, or the 4 theories of the feminism. Liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist feminism, and the socialist feminism. Let's take one by one. Liberal feminism. Liberal feminism starts from the 18th century when liberal feminists starts talking about equal education. Mary Wollstonecraft, she is one of the prominent liberal feminists, and she is very famous about her work, Vindication of the Rights of the Women. She talks about equal education, but she neglects the women's suffrage movement as the wastage of time. She argued well-educated women did not need to be economically self-sufficient or politically active in order to be autonomous. She argues in favor of educational variety in utilitarian terms. She claimed that unlike emotional and dependent women who routinely shrink their domestic duties and indulge their carnal desires, rational and independent women will tend to be observant daughters, affectionate sisters, faithful wives, and reasonable mothers. The truly educated women will be a major contributor to society's welfare. the 19th century, feminist thoughts believes on the equal liberty with equal education. In 18th century, it is only for the equal education. But in 19th century, it's equal liberty with equal education. Means approximately 100 years later, James Mill and the Harriet Taylor joined Mary Wollstonecraft. They also departed from the Wollstonecraft in insisting that if society is to achieve sexual equality or gender justice, then society must provide women with the same political rights and the economic opportunities, as well as the same education that men do. Liberal feminists believe that the main cause of gender inequality are ignorance and the socialization. They do not believe that social institutions are inherently patriarchal. They believe in the march of progress view of gender relations. Means they believe the men and the women are gradually becoming more equal over time and that this trend will be continued. Aim of liberal feminism. The liberal feminists do not seek the revolutionary changes. They want changes to take place within the existing structure. The main aim of the liberal feminism is the creation of equal opportunities. For example, Sex Determination Act and the Equal Pay Act. Means, in shortly, we can say that the liberal feminists never blame society for gender inequality. They reject the term social constructed gender roles. Political and economic, they mainly focus on equal education and equal liberty, political and economical rights. They want that women should enjoy all the rights as human beings, which are also enjoyed by the men. Now, radical feminism. Radical feminism Radical feminism is a philosophy emphasizing the patriarchal roots of inequality between men and women. Radical feminism views patriarchy as dividing rights, privileges, and the power primarily by sex and the result of raising women and privileging men. Radical feminism opposes existing political and social organization in general, but it is inherently tied to the patriarchy. Radical feminism discourse patriarchy as a social system in which all men are assumed to dominate and offers all women accounts for women position in the society. Radical feminism have been in forefront of exposing abuse of women and positioning issue. For example, sex violence, wife battery, and in recently the sex tourism and trafficking in women pornography. The aim of the radical feminism is to disseminate the entire system of patriarchy rather than making adjustment to the existing system through legal and the social welfare. In shortly, we can say that the radical feminism argues that oppression of women by men in a system called patriarchy, there is almost universal system existing in virtually every known society. And patriarchy is based in an oppressive family structure within which women's sexuality and the reproductive capacities are controlled. Marxist feminism. The idea of the Marxist feminism is originated from the idea of Karl Marx, which were used to understand the capitalist sources of the oppression of women and focus on concerning of the working women. Marxists tried to make people understand that housework and the child care is still a real work. Taking care of children and the house is just as a important work compared, or it is equivalent to the engineer and the doctor's work. Even women get paid jobs, they still lower wages than the man. So Marxist feminism states that capitalism, which increases economic equality and unhealthy social relations between men and women, is the root of women oppression. Marxist feminism shows how the working class is exploited for profit by the capitalism, who gain wealth by paying workers a bare minimum of value they produce. Marxist feminists view the capitalist drive for profits as responsible for women's second-class status and other forms of oppression such as racism. The position of the women in family serves the interest of economy and the ruling class. According to the view of Marxist Frederich Engels views, he's done a lot of work on the Marxist feminism. So he states that the economic inequality, dependence, political confusion, and ultimately unhealthy social relations between men and the women are the roots of women's oppression. In shortly, we can say that the Marxists argued women's liberation requires feminists to join the working class struggle against capitalism. Marxist feminists also argued women's work in biological and social reproduction is necessary. And the last one, that is the socialist feminism. The socialist feminist thought is the understanding that not just one system of oppression is at the heart of women's subordination. Socialist feminism does not focus exclusively on gender to account for women's position, but attempts to incorporate an analysis of class and economic condition of women. The central concept of are the reproduction of labor and the economic value of the domestic labor. Socialist feminism addresses women's inequality in a two-pronged approach, connecting capitalism and the patriarchy, and providing that patriarchy is not the sole source of oppression. The first objective is often referring to women's limited role in society, staying at home and raising a family as a major factor in their oppression. The second object aims to show that women can experience it in various other ways, including race, class, sexual orientation, and education, among the others. Means we can say that socialist feminist thinks that the cause of oppression of the women are both class division that is mentioned in capitalism and the patriarchy, which includes social inequalities on the basis of the gender. Key takeaways: the researches done by women, the researches for women and about women. And there is no single definition of the feminist research, but many authors point out to certain key elements as defining features of the feminist research. The feminists started to think critically about the mainstream of social science researchers in 1960s and 1970s. Feminism is a social as well as political movement concerned with women's rights, aiming to point out and condemn their suffrage. And there are the four types of feminism: liberal, radical, Marxist, and socialist feminism. Liberal feminism mainly focused on equal education and equal liberty. Radical feminism focused on oppression of women by a patriarchal system. Marxist feminism focused on women liberation, which required feminists to join working class struggle against capitalism. Socialist feminism focused on women's oppression caused by their economic development. Points for reflection: as a future teacher, what are your views on feminism? And you have to read the researches on feminism. And these are the references. Hope you will like this session. Thank you very much.